What is up, everybody, and welcome to the 5 days of color grading. I'm going to be bringing you through tips and tricks every single day of this week on how to improve your color grading skills and how to make better looking images. Today we're going to be talking about CST, Color Space Transform. What is it, what does it do, and why is it important? And make sure to stick to the end of this video because I have something just for you. Let's get started. So what is a color space transform? So it's exactly in the name. It's transferring your color space from one color space to the other. Normally your footage is going to be in a log format, and then you're going to transfer it into a color space such as Rec 709, and then you're going to start color grading. The reason why we changed it into a Rec 709 color space is because a lot of our devices such as our monitors, our cell phones, our projectors are all in the Rec 709 color space, and so that makes it easier to get a consistent look on multiple devices out of your color grade. The second reason is that it makes it a lot easier to actually match footage from different cameras. Think of it like cake. If you have a chocolate cake and a vanilla cake and you want them to look the same, what are you going to do first? You're going to put the fondant on and then the icing, and then you're going to start adding the flowers and the designs and the words and everything like that. Transferring your footage to Rec 709 is like adding that fondant or that icing on top. It gives it a base layer for it to be easily modified to look the exact same. Now that the explanation's out the way, let's hop into DaVinci Resolve and see how we can create our own color space transform. So we have this footage loaded up, and this is some Sony S-Log3 footage, and we're going to build out a simple node tree, and I'm going to show you where actually to place that color space transform. So I'm just going to build out 4 nodes, align these, and you don't want to place your color space transform at the beginning. You actually want to place it at the end. So we're going to go to this end node, go to Effects, and we're going to scroll down to Color Space Transform. We're going to drag it onto the last node, and I'm going to explain after why we do this, but let's just get it set up first. Now we're going to go back to Effects, and we see that we have our color space transform loaded up. Now we're only going to really work in this section. This is going to be where we actually do the transformation. We have our input color space, we have our input gamma, we have our output color space, and we have our output gamma. We're going to first click on input color space. We can see here Sony S Gamma 3, which aligns with Sony S-Log3, and then we're going to go to input gamma. We're going to scroll down and click on Sony S-Log3 right here, Sony S-Log3. Now we've seen that the contrast has changed, but we aren't in the Rec 709 color space yet. So now I'm going to go to output color space. I'm going to click that and scroll down to Rec 709. And then I'm going to go to output gamma, and I'm going to change the gamma to gamma 2.4 right here, gamma 2.4. And now we have transferred the Sony S-Log3 footage into Rec 709. Now I am using Sony S-Log3 footage, but you might have Canon C-Log footage or Panasonic V-Log footage. DaVinci Resolve has options for all of those. You're just going to go through the drop down and select your option depending on the camera that you have. So if you have Panasonic V-Log, click Panasonic V-Gamma, and then scroll down and click on Panasonic V-Log, and that's going to convert your Panasonic footage into Rec 709, and vice versa for every other main camera that's available on the market. If you're having trouble finding what color space your camera's in, you can easily find it with a quick Google search. Now that we have our color space transform added in, I'm just going to label it real quick so we know which one it is from a glance. CST. Why in the world are we putting it at the end instead of the beginning? I'm going to show you. The reason why is because when you're transferring your color space, especially from a log format to Rec 709, it actually limits the amount of dynamic range and the ability that you have to actually edit the footage. Now, of course, you might think this is a bad thing, but it's really good for when you're exporting your footage, but it's not good for actually grading your footage. So let me show you an example of why we actually color grade before the CST node. So I'm just going to create an extra node after the CST, and we're just going to edit the one before. So I'm just going to bring up the gain. I'm going to bring it up until the highlights are completely clipped. It looks disgusting, it looks bad. Now, me and you both know that these can be recovered. I just had them in a better state. Now, if we go to the node after the CST and try and bring down the gain, we can see that the image does not get restored and the highlights are still clipping. And we can even go down to the right and go to our waveforms, and we can see that the highlights are still clipping, even though we know that that information is there. Now, if we reset our settings and we overexpose on the node after the CST, so let's overexpose, and okay, it looks bad again. Now, if we go backwards and we go to a node before the CST conversion and we bring down the gain, we've restored the highlights. Why? Because we're editing the original raw or log footage from the camera and not the one that's been converted, meaning we're gonna have a lot more dynamic range. We're gonna have a lot more push and pull to be able to edit that footage properly. So you're gonna always wanna put your CST near the end, and you're gonna wanna always be editing the nodes behind the CST. Now, there's actually a second way that we can use color space transforms, and that's by first converting your footage to Cineon Film Log. Let me show you. So we have this simple node tree set up with the exact same footage, but you see that we have a CST in and we also have a CST out. Now, instead of first converting that footage from S-Log straight to Rec 709, we're now gonna convert it to Cineon Film Log, which is an even flatter profile that can give us even more push and pull with our footage. So let's check out these nodes and what we've done here. So we have our first node here, and if I activate it, we've converted our S-Log3 footage into DaVinci Wide Gamut and Cineon Film Log. And then we've added our output node that has converted Cineon Film Log into Rec 709. And even though we've added an extra step, our footage still looks the exact same as our previous node tree. Why? Because we're still doing the same process. We're just adding that extra step of converting it into Cineon Film Log to give it a little bit more longitude and latitude. I like to call it longitude and latitude, a little bit more pull. And of course, you guessed it, we're gonna do the majority of our editing in between those two nodes. So you're gonna add your color, this looks terrible, but you're gonna add your color, your parallel nodes, everything like that in between. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, Jasil, this didn't make that much of a difference. If I'm turning this on and off, it's not making that much of a difference between S-Log3 footage and Cineon Film Log, so why would I even use it? Now, I actually don't use it in this setting. I use it to transfer Rec 709 footage into a log format. Let me show you. So here we have some DJI drone footage, and I'm pretty sure this comes from the DJI Mini SE. So this drone doesn't have any type of log format or flat color profile. This is what the footage looks like straight out of camera. But this can be a difficult starting point to start color grading your footage. So what we're gonna do is convert this footage into a Cineon Film Log. And if we go to our effects panel, we can see that because we don't really know what this footage is, as in the color space of this footage, we can just assume that it's a Rec 709 color space. So on this first node, we've converted this footage from Rec 709 to Cineon Film Log. And look what happens when I activate this node. It turns it into a flat color profile. Now, this isn't gonna be the same as if it was a log profile out of the camera, but it gives us a lot better of a starting point to be able to push and pull those colors and that contrast. And of course, with our CST out, we have Cineon Film Log converted back to Rec 709. And our footage, if we actually do a bypass, looks the exact same. But if we take a zoom in on our nodes, we can actually see that this node looks a little bit flatter than this node because we have that information there. So now we can do a little bit more pushing and pulling, maybe put a little bit of, blues in the shadows. I don't really know what I'm doing with this footage, but it's gonna make it a lot easier to color grade footage that has a Rec 709 color space coming out of camera. Now that you know what CSTs are, I have a surprise for you. I don't like it when people have to do work, so I've created power grades for you to easily drag and drop CST presets into DaVinci Resolve. We have them for every camera from S-Log to C-Log to V-Log to DJI D-Log to F-Log for Fujifilm, even N-Log for Nikon cameras. And all you simply have to do is take it, drag it on, and boom, you have your CST conversion and you have nodes ready to start color grading. And I've also created power grades that have that Cineon film conversion first, and those will be labeled CFL, and you can just drag those on, and we have CST in and CST out. And this is going to tremendously speed up your workflow because you're not going to have to do those conversions every single time you bring in new footage. So you can download this pack in the description down below for completely free. Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing, and make sure you tune in tomorrow for another great tip.